Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a week starting edition of Sirhan on X, live from Cincinnati, Ohio, in the United States. Hope everyone had themselves a wonderful weekend and a wonderful 13th of January 2025. Happy playoff victory to the Ravens, the Texans, the Bills, the Eagles, and the Commanders. Great wins over the weekend in the wild card weekend. Of course, tonight is the Vikings and the Rams. I'll preview that a little bit. Seeing as a boatload of people in Minnesota flew to Arizona for that game, shout out to the purple and gold. Just want to get just one shout out for only Skull. No, I don't have a rooting interest, but just for you guys that flew from Minnesota to Arizona. So I just want to give you guys that. Of course, you guys know I moved from LA to Arizona because of the wild stuff that's going on there with the fires. Hopefully everybody is safe from all of that in the West Coast, and hopefully those who are doing such a criminal act are found and brought to justice. Uh, Little chillier night in Cincinnati. Say I've got this thing going. Those watching around here, stay warm because it's supposed to hit the single digits tomorrow and the next day. So, of course, I have to drive on that thing Wednesday morning. So, hope everyone is safe in this Monday night. I'll go ahead and get right down to it here real quick. It's of course it'll start with Wild Card Weekend. Actually, now it's called Super Wild Card Weekend. I don't know why. I guess because they put the extra seeds in each conference. Of course, the first game was the Texans over the Chargers. Uh, it might be time for a conversation regarding Justin Herbert for one reason. Think of what happened 2 seasons ago when they went to Jacksonville and they were up. I think it was somewhere at one point it was 27-0. I almost want to say it was 30-0 at one point, and they just basically crapped a bit. And he didn't necessarily play all that great. This going into this playoff game, he had probably his most efficient year, where he only had 3 interceptions. Just in this game alone, he was sacked at least 5 times and was picked off 4 times. You know, and in the one touchdown he had to Lad McConkey, the pass was overthrown. He was lucky McConkey just caught it and found a way to spin off on a defender, take it to the house. He didn't necessarily play all that great. A lot of people put him in that elite category, which I think he's on the border. I won't go that far. I mean, there's only 3 elite quarterbacks in the NFL. They are no brainers. That's Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. The fourth best quarterback is like miles behind those 3, whoever you want to put there. But for Justin Herbert to do this at the most inopportune time, albeit against a very, very stout defense with Daniil Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. on the edges and Derek Stingley in the secondary, it raises a lot. It's raising a lot of questions, understandably so. Uh, but remind you, we went through this 2 seasons ago when he was in Jacksonville. They were gift wrapped a 27-0 lead because the Jacksonville offense just coughed it up 5 times, and the Chargers did nothing with it except settle for field goals. Grant, that was with Brandon Staley. This year is with Jim Harbaugh. I mean, there's going to be it's questions all over the place. Uh, again, don't know where this is going to be headed, but this ideology of him in that being in that so-called elite category with those big 3 I mentioned might be time to cool it a little bit. See what happens next season. There's some holes they're going to probably need more likely another receiver because Quentin Johnson was nowhere to be seen the other day. And basically the defense, which basically was tops in the red zone, let Joe Mixon just walk his way to the game clinching touchdown when it was all said and done. Of course, the special teams was another great 2, I think a blocked field goal, and of course the blocked extra point that was ran back for 2 points. It was just a hot dog and mess for the Chargers. Maybe they were just a case of false hope for people who thought they was going to find a way to break through and beat a Houston team who didn't play all that great toward the end of the season, but got it all together for this one playoff game. And you can see the emotion of D'Amico Ryans, the head coach of the Texans. He wanted this game because everybody was classifying this as the so-called Chargers bye week before they were supposedly going to be headed to Kansas. That's why you don't catch your chickens before they hatch. I mean, they got bulletin board material and they played just spectacular. They had the pick 6 by Turner, the clinching interception by Stingley Jr. and Joe Mixon running it for the touchdown. C.J. Stroud, probably we talk about the top quarterbacks of the NFL, probably the top 5, but still way behind the big 3 as I mentioned. But I'm a little surprised how many people thought C.J. Stroud was in that quote trash end quote category when he's had basically a trying year, having 2 of his top receivers, Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs, out, having Nico Collins out for a period, and an offensive line was basically just been makeshift, and you have the corpse of Laramie Tonsil as your best O lineman. People really putting CJ Stroud in the trash category when he doesn't even belong there. It just absolutely makes no sense. I mean, to me, he's a top 5 quarterback with, far behind the big 3. But if you want to put him he's in the top 5 somewhere, I think that's where he belongs. But he played well enough to get the win. Joe Mixon played more than well enough to get the win, and got the clinching touchdown. Got the MVP with the stuff with Nickelodeon, which I thought was pretty cool for him, given the hell he went through in Cincinnati because they don't know how to use him right, and Houston did. So Houston wins. They're going to Kansas City. I think it's on Saturday. I'll get into that game later on in the week. And of course, the nightcapper of that one was the game was basically not as close as the score indicated. It was Baltimore dog walking Pittsburgh. Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry did anything and everything they wanted. Pittsburgh got going a little bit in the second half, but it was a case of too little, too late because Baltimore pretty much had control from the game from the start to finish. Derrick Henry just ran wild. As the game wore on, he started to pick up bigger runs, started to wear out that Steeler defense. But where was T.J. Watt to be seen in that particular game? I mean, Roger Rosengarten, one of the better right tackles in the league, probably just basically put the clamps on T.J. Watt and made him non-existent. I mean, you talk about a guy who's in the Defensive Player of the Year voting, who was the second team All-Pro, stand-up defensive player. But man, what Roger Rosengarten just pretty much put him on lockdown, and that was all she wrote because Jackson and Henry did anything and everything they wanted, and they move on to the game Saturday. This Sunday at Buffalo. Solid win for Baltimore. Pittsburgh, a lot of people are calling for Mike Tomlin's head. I wouldn't go that far. I get it. He's lost his last six straight playoff games. I mean, it doesn't help the cause. It helps your argument. I understand it. Somebody needs to put a real offensive philosophy out there because the old school way of 3 yards in a cloud of dust won't get it done. I mean, Baltimore knew this. They planned for it, and that's why everything happened. I mean, Russell Wilson, I guess he's a free agent. They're talking about who goes with him. I think they should have stuck with Justin Fields, obviously, simply because, he was, making the plays necessary. I think it was because Mike Tomlin promised Russell Wilson it was his job and he was going to give it to him. So he probably stuck to his word. But next season, I think they should go to Justin Fields and stick with Justin Fields because I think a game like this would have been good for the skill set of Justin Fields. Not saying they would have beaten Baltimore because Baltimore's offense was just rolling, especially on the ground. But it would have been a different, a much better result, probably more competitive game than what it was. So we'll see where Pittsburgh goes with this next season. I think they should go to Justin Fields. I think firing Mike Tomlin is not the right idea unless you're going to call Bill Belichick out of the college fraternity, which that's probably not going to happen. That's the only exception I would probably make for if you want to fire Mike Tomlin. So that Baltimore was on. They move on to play Buffalo, who, of course, yesterday just demolished Denver in the second half. Denver had their moments in the first half, but Josh Allen showed why he's an MVP candidate in the second half. And this basically just finished it off with a 31-7 win. Which brings me to a point, and I'm going to tie I guess everybody in Cincinnati's up in an uproar again, and they want to drag me into it. I'm just going to say this. The 7th seed won 10 games this season. The Bengals won 9. If you still think the Bengals were more deserving of a playoff spot than the Broncos, as I said before, get off this app, go to a local hospital, because a lot of good ones here in Cincinnati, get checked for CTE, and if they ask why, tell me you thought the Bengals were robbed of a playoff spot they didn't deserve. Come back to me and bring me the results. Would have been a better game? Probably. But did they deserve the opportunity? The answer is no. I don't care about committees. I don't care about, theoretics. I don't care about analytics. I don't care about hypotheticals. You don't take care of your business in the regular season, you get what you deserve in the end. Cincinnati did. Denver was more deserving of the spot. I mean, I honestly thought the defense would play much better than this. I thought offensively they was going to have their issues because Bo Nix versus Josh Allen. Who are you going to choose? I mean, Josh Allen's probably an MVP frontrunner. That's where I lose all of this because it's about who deserved it. Now, of course, as I said, the 7th seed wild card, people were talking about they should do away with it. I understand it, But this is what we're dealt with because they wanted to extend the season to 17 games. And now they're talking about going to 18 here in a few years, but Roger Goodell continues to put it off. I think anybody with a brain knows we were going to go to 18. But the whole idea of one team, who could have played a quote, better game in Buffalo than the other because of better personnel is absolutely neurotic and idiotic because that team did not deserve to go to the playoffs. You laid an egg against the Jacoby Brissett New England Patriots blatantly, and that's why you're at home, and that's why Denver went to the playoffs. Nobody here should be even Cincinnati should be talking about what another team does in the playoffs because you didn't deserve the opportunity to begin with. Period. Season's over. For Cincinnati, go to Cancun like everyone else. Enjoy the offseason. Quit worrying about it. But for Denver, I think they have a nice future with Bo Nix as their quarterback. Marvin Mims, played very well as a receiver. They're probably going to need another receiver opposite of him because I wasn't thrilled with how Cortland Sutton played yesterday. But on the defensive side, where the heck was Pat Surtain? I mean, there was one play he got smoked by Curtis Samuel, and I never recall Patrick Surtain is getting smoked like that. That's where the problem lies. But I still think they have a bright future. The problem is they're going to be the AFC West where Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert are. But I think they have a nice, solid team going. They're going in the right direction. They won 10 games. They were the rightful deserving of the playoff spot, and they deserved it. And at the end of the day, Buffalo was just simply the better team. Nothing you could do about that. Of course, we set up the big tilt Sunday night in Buffalo between the Ravens and the Bills. And you talk about the second or third best quarterbacks in the league, however you want to dice it, doesn't matter to me, between Lamar Jackson of Baltimore and Josh Allen of Buffalo. Maybe the game of the upcoming divisional round weekend. I'll get onto that later on this week. Now, of course, the NFC bracket, it was Philly over Green Bay. They got the win, but don't color me impressed because offensively, they weren't necessarily great. The only person who was really great was Saquon Barkley again, 114 yards. The defense, though, was stout. I mean, Quinion Mitchell and Darius Slay got 2 of the 3 picks of Jordan Love. Nolan Smith Jr. with the 2 sacks. Of course, it was the Kobe Dean, the linebacker, out for the rest of the playoffs and probably into next season with the patella injury. Philly's an interesting team. I mean, they seem to they don't wow you, they don't flash you, but they're getting W's. They did that all season long, especially when you consider the collapse they had last season out of nowhere. They seem to bounce back rather solidly, just getting W's. I mean, nothing. I mean, they don't. I mean, they're not going to make the highlight reel. They're not going to, make the fanfare. But they're getting the W's, and that's basically what you're asking for. Well coached up playing by the defense because they put the locks on Jordan Love. Now, granted, Jordan Love didn't have Christian Watson on this roster, which obviously didn't help. But Philly got the job done, and they're going to probably host more likely to host the winner of tonight's game. And of course, the conclusion of the wild card weekend was Washington over Tampa. Maybe the pick'em game of the week because one day I went Washington, one day I went Tampa, one day I went Washington, one day I went Tampa. But I remind people again why I was high on the Jaden Daniels bandwagon, and he showed it. Gets whacked upside the head with a cut right here on the somewhere in his cheek. I forgot how. I remember how. But I guess helmet got driven into his head. Spearheads the game-winning drive that sets up the game-winning field goal, and they advance. And there's a reason why Jaden Daniels, in my opinion, should be the offensive rookie of the year. And that night just showed it. But for Tampa, you had 2nd and 1 inside the Washington 12 with 6 minutes left. You don't convert a first down. You settle for a game-tying field goal, and you don't get the ball back. You have Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans, and you settle only for a field goal at that time. In that situation, I mean, really? Somebody explain that to me. Of course, Mike Evans was open basically every chance he got where Marcus Lattimore was matched up against him. And I don't know how you can't decide one play in that situation for Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans, and you just get basically 2 plays to set up for basically game tying field goal. No wonder why people in Tampa are calling for Todd Bowles' head. I mean, that was just down the stretch mismanagement. I think basically most of the game was mismanagement simply because Tampa, I thought, had ample chances to score some more points against the Washington defense, which wasn't great outside of Marcus Lattimore. But, that's why the this was a toss-up game. I mean, neither defense was all that great during the season, but they played better in this game. And Tampa Bay is going to probably regret to live this one because I thought they had chances to basically win this and a second and one inside the Washington 12 to settle for a game-tying field goal, and he was unable to get the ball back with the remaining, I think, like 6 minutes, 2 seconds left. That's going to sting for a while. But for Washington, they're going to Detroit. And I'll tell you this. Washington's going to be as loose as you could possibly be because basically no one's picking them to win. They're going to be a live underdog. I don't know what the spread is. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't care for spreads because that's for morons like Kay Adams. But they're going to be loose. They're going to be ready. And I think they're going to give Detroit all they can handle. Whether they beat them is another story because of Detroit's depleted secondary. But Jaden Daniels is playing with extreme confidence right now. And right now, you just have to be impressed with what he's done. I mean, talk about the year after they canned Dan Snyder and get rid of all of the toxic that came with it. Go to these playoffs with 12 wins and win a road playoff game against a division winner like Tampa. It says a lot about the direction they're starting to head. I mean, there's still work to do on that roster, and they still have Detroit to go against. I think it's Saturday night, but they're headed in the right direction. And I think this game Saturday against Detroit is going to be better than people think. I don't think it's going to be the wipeout a lot of people are already saying, because this team is confident. You talk about Jaden Daniels with Terry McLaurin. As you think of what McLaurin had to go through during the Dan Snyder era, and for him to get to this point, I mean, kudos to him for putting up with a lot over there in Washington. I'll go into the divisional round when it comes closer to it, because there's still one game to be played. That's Minnesota and LA. Don't know who this move to Arizona really favors. I still said all along, I think it's going to come down to the better quarterback play. Who do you trust more? Been there, done that with Matthew Stafford. Of course, we saw how Sam Darnold looked against Detroit on this past Sunday, where he was missing passes badly. I mean, we're talking about a pass like 4 feet high over Justin Jefferson. I mean, Justin Jefferson's not that tall. I think he missed a TJ Hawkinson with like 2 feet out here. His arms aren't that long. So I still think the Rams are going to win because I think the two-headed monster receiver, Nakua and Kupp, I think are going to be a little too much for that defense. I think it's going to be a middle ground scoring game. I'm still taking the Rams despite the relocation. I think that a shorter turnaround, which is interesting for the Minnesota perspective, having to travel from Detroit to LA to now to Arizona for whatever reason, might get to them a little bit, but we'll wait and see. We've been wrong about Minnesota a lot this season. I mean, but the game, now we're going to find out what they're made of. Because in my opinion, this is Sam Darnold's contract for after what happened in Detroit. I expect him to come out better and play better tonight because he's basically playing for a contract, whether it be for Minnesota or for another team. Actually, I think Minnesota would be nuts to let him go. So that takes care of my playoff coverage. Of course, also this weekend was the All-Pro rosters. I'm not going to nitpick it like a lot of the idiots here do, because it's not worth nitpicking. But I think that the offense on the two All-Pro teams on the offensive side were perfect. I mean, the quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, no-brainers. Some people said with Patrick Mahomes, I think Patrick Mahomes cares about bigger fish to fry than an All-Pro selection. And I think he's going to show when they begin their playoff run starting Saturday. The running backs, no-brainers, Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry. Surprised they had a position for a fullback. But to me, there's only one real fullback we're talking about. That's Pat Rashard of Baltimore. The first team All-Pro receivers are no-brainers. That's Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. I've seen all the O-lines on both sides. I thought solid all the way around. Some weird ways on the defensive side. Again, I'm not going to nitpick it. It's already been nitpicked already. But for the most part, I thought it was great all the way around on the first team and the second team. The offensive sides on both were perfect. I mean, position for position almost. Maybe you can argue a couple guys should have gone from first to second, but I think in terms of the overall players, they got it. But I'm not going to nitpick this because everyone is entitled to their psychotic opinion, especially in Cincinnati. But it is what it is at this point. It's over with. It's done with. I think for the most part, they got it right. I don't know what the criteria is. I'm not going to venture into it because it's not worth venturing into, but let's leave it as it is. Which brings me to something I'm going to just touch on real quick, and then I'm going to move on to other things because once again, after Sunday, there's a huge uproar here in Cincinnati, and we have people again who have their brains unscrewed for the wrong reasons. We have people, mainly the fans, the super fans, the content creators, and the media people here in Cincinnati, once again, trying to buff this idiotic ideology that they were more deserving of a playoff spot than the Denver Broncos when Denver lost to Buffalo. I'll just say this one time. Take care of your business at home as an adult, period. You let a Jacoby Brissett New England Patriots team beat you on your home turf week 1. That was it. I can point to other things. Lamar Jackson sweeping you. I can point to you quitting against Philadelphia where you got dog walked. And of course, your quarterback getting outplayed by Russell Wilson in the home loss of Pittsburgh. And that was just terrible. But you lost week 1 to a tanking New England Patriots team led by Jacoby Brissett, who many people, including myself, thought they were going to flirt with a winless season. Because I was one that said they might have a 0 on the win column. When you let a team dog walk you week 1, you're setting yourself up for failure, and blatantly so. And I mean blatantly. Because bad habits from week 1 carry over more than you think. Too many of you guys here in Cincinnati are so this-sided we don't see this big. Your attention to detail is pathetic. Your big picture view is terrible. And that's the end of the conversation. You guys got what you deserved sitting home in the playoffs. I don't want to hear about how the Kansas City Chiefs forfeited the game on purpose to prevent you from going to the playoffs because nobody was afraid of you, not even the New England Patriots. And your season was done. The players got what they deserved. The coaches got what they deserved. The fans, the super fans, the content creators, and all the media people over here got exactly 100% what they deserved when the Denver Broncos beat the Kansas City Chiefs because they didn't deserve the playoff spot, and the Denver Broncos did. The results of this, what happened yesterday between Denver and Buffalo, are irrelevant because they earned that spot. It's a whole. Once you get to the playoffs, it's a whole different animal. Something you guys in Cincinnati refuse to understand. But that's the end game right there. Just walk away from it. Don't even talk about the playoffs because anyone that has a team that's sitting at home missing the playoffs right now needs to shut up and move on with them. That includes you guys in Cincinnati. As I get that off my chest. On to an historical moment, though, I will talk about before I go into other sports. Because when we talk about NFL playoffs, it was 44 years ago. One of the iconic plays in NFL history took place at Candlestick Park in San Francisco. Probably one of my all-time favorite plays to talk about. It was the 1981 NFC Championship game between the Dallas Cowboys, coached by the great Tom Landry, against the San Francisco 49ers, coached by the great Bill Walsh. We know the history with this, with the players. It was, the play. I'm going to just dissect it briefly. It was 3rd and 6. The great Joe Montana rolls out to the right. Can't find anyone, so he rolls out further right. Throws like a crossbody pass, which apparently was headed for the out of bounds, but the 6'4" Dwight Clark in the back of the end zone caught it for what turned out to be the game-winning touchdown with 58 seconds left. They kicked the extra point, and the San Francisco 49ers beat Dallas 28-27 to start the first of their 4 Super Bowl run in the 80s. We use the phrase clutch gene for many, many, many athletes for a long, 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 long time. Maybe for his time, maybe no one had a more clutch gene and was more cold-blooded in the clutch than the great Joe Montana. This play was Exhibit A. I said all along when it comes to Joe Montana, we talk about making things easy and making it look easy. He had the uncanny ability to see the field, slow the game down to his tempo, see everything from left to right in front of you. And when he found an open receiver, you knew how to throw the pass and make the right target at the most clutch times imaginable. Of course, another one was Super Bowl 23 against the Bengals. But on this particular play, the legend that is now forever known as the original Joe Cool, known as Joe Montana, started. And this was basically the beginning of the 80s dynasty of the San Francisco 49ers. And we talk about the upper echelon of GOATs and clutch athletes. Joe Montana is among the top of that list. I mean, to me, I think he has the most. To me, in my opinion, he's probably the most clutch NFL player in NFL history. All the Super Bowls he had, he never threw an interception. I mean, that's all you need to know. I mean, the performance he had is Super Bowl 24 against the Broncos, where he dissected that Broncos secondary to a 55-10 win, was the capper. But the 1980s, the NFL belonged to one guy and one guy only, and one team only. That was the San Francisco 49ers, led by the great Joe Montana. I, I mean, his career speaks for itself. His career accolades speak for itself. Nothing more needs to be said. I mean, but this started this night 44 years ago at the old Candlestick Park, a packed house where Joe Montana threw the game-winning pass to Dwight Clark in the end zone. Of course, there's this ideology for years that Joe Montana was basically sealing it out of bounds. Of course, Montana and Clark basically begged to differ. But how Joe Montana was able to roll out and was mobile and patient, looking for the opportunity to put the pass to where Clark can catch it, was why he was probably the most clutch athlete of his time. Maybe the only one during his 80s remotely close was probably Michael Jordan. But if we talk about clutch gene in the NFL, Joe Montana has it. And we talk about the upper goats, I mean, the goats of goats in all of sports, Ali, Jordan, even a Tom Brady, Wayne Gretzky, Babe Ruth, Edwin Moses, among many others. Joe Montana is up at that conversation, and deservedly so. I mean, his career and accolades speak for itself. We won't see another athlete quite like that. I haven't seen any quarterback remotely close because it takes quarterbacks volume stats to try and surpass it. Joe Montana didn't need the stats. He just needed to show up when the time came, and he did it 4 times in his career, and that's why he's a 4-time Super Bowl winner. He'll always be my GOAT regardless. But what a moment that was. Probably one of the 5 most iconic plays in NFL history. That catch, forever known as the catch, San Francisco and Dallas, Joe Montana to Dwight Clark. So that takes care of the NFL segment. Of course, over the weekend was the college football playoff. I'll just briefly touch this real quick. It was both Notre Dame and Ohio State winning down to the wire for Notre Dame against Penn State. The 2 running backs for Penn State played solidly. Of course, Riley Leonard played well for Notre Dame. But once again, we're having a conversation of James Franklin being unable to manage situational football. He had this ball late, decided to punt it, never got the ball back. Notre Dame marched down for the game-winning field goal, and that's all she wrote. Kudos to Notre Dame going to the national title game. And, of course, Ohio State and Texas. The intentional idiocy of Steve Sargassian to refuse to play Archie Manning for a reason. He refuses to say why. It was rely on some character called Quinn Ewers. Reared its ugly head because, Jack Sawyer forced the fumble, took the thing to the house to seal it with in the final defensive play of the game for Ohio State. That was all she wrote. And we get Ohio State and Notre Dame in the national title game. Let me remind all you douches in Columbus one thing. Shut up. It's not going to be that easy. I mean, you might win. You're probably going to win. But if you think it's easier than Notre Dame, get checked for CTE because you're a loose cannon in the head right now. So end the conversation with that one. I'll get into that college football playoff later on. Of course, more news here in Cincinnati. Actually, more on the positive side. It was the FC Cincinnati soccer team picking up Kevin Denkey off I don't know how the soccer terms go, but they got him. He arrived in Cincinnati. The FC Cincinnati fans at CVG, who I got a salute for this one, showed up and gave him nothing but love and support as he is about to become the face of FC Cincinnati down the line. His goal here is to win games. He likes the culture that's put together here in Cincinnati with the soccer team. And basically, that's pretty much the primary reason why he decided to choose here over some of the other Major League Soccer teams. Striker is going to probably help Lucho Acosta. Very, very sound player from the footage I've seen. Great pickup. Job well done, FC Cincinnati. Of course, the other one earlier today was Brian Anunga, a midfielder. Who's basically a more like a depth piece because everybody knows the midfield position for FC Cincinnati last year was just atrocious. But a good, solid signing here. And of course, the two main pieces here earlier today was Lucho Oriano and Lucho Acosta not showing up to their I guess whatever they call it in soccer for the preseason training camp. I expect them to be there when the time comes. too many of you guys in Cincinnati are reading to what they write down on their social media profiles in Cincinnati because you guys are brown-nosed idiots with nothing better to do with your lives. But leave everything be. Good things will come if you just shut up and leave it be. Because I think FC Cincinnati is going to be a competitive team this season. They weren't supposed to be competitive last season, but they finished third best in points in the Eastern Conference and got a home playoff game, albeit they lost on penalty kicks. But last year was an overachievement. Now you start to put the pieces together. You're supposed to get Matt Miazga back. Hopefully Matt Miazga can learn how to be a man and not a loose cannon moron. And of course, they're talking about Nick Hagglund going to eventually be back, but it's going to be later rather than sooner. We'll see where that goes. But good job today, FC Cincinnati. Looking forward to being down there at TQL this season for several of those games. I said all along when it comes to you guys, when you guys, especially you guys in the Bailey who get all riled up and nuts, you guys create a unique atmosphere down there that is second to none. I've been to at least 10 games myself. I look forward to going to more. Just simply watching you guys just uplift the team the best way you guys possibly could. I mean, I said along, you can have your NFL fans, you have your baseball fans, your NBA fans, but when it comes to soccer fans, especially not just when I'm talking about here in Cincinnati, but globally, it's a different kind of fandom and a different kind of passion that touches in the soul and the heart of the human being like none other. I got a chance to witness that here with the FC Cincinnati, the games I've been going to over the last several years. I mean, great atmosphere, fun atmosphere. I mean, everyone just it just enjoys the moment. I mean, none of them. I mean, if don't go crazy like the idiots that Cincinnati Bengals fans do, but they rather enjoy the moment, even win or loss. They're there for the moment and they just enjoy it. It's like their happy place in their or escape from reality. That's mine too. I love TQL Stadium. I'll be touching more soccer this season because I said I was going to take the show on the TQL to do some soccer previews this season. So I'm done with the Cincinnati talk. We'll just leave it at that. Now, of course, we're going to conclude with some boxing. Of course, news broke out today. Tyson Fury retired. How many people that follow the sport like I do really believe Tyson Fury is really retired? Do you guys really think Tyson Fury is really retired? Really? We've seen this act before. We know what this is about. To try and prop up something sensational, try and get a fight with the Anthony Joshua fight next year, which we know it's going to happen because it'll be the definition of intentional stupidity if we don't get Joshua and Fury in 2025. We know Fury is Fury. Fury's going to be Fury. He's going to play mind games, and he's doing it here again. Nobody is fooled. I don't think even Anthony Joshua is fooled. That's a fight to make in the UK in 2025, probably more like in the summer or fall, maybe. He's not saying retired. He did this after the Klitschko fight. He did this a couple times before. Of course, he has long hiatuses from the sport for whatever reason. I know he's probably have another one here because he knows he couldn't carry the jockstrap of Alexander Usyk. He had 2 opportunities and failed. We know we're getting Fury Joshua next year at the earliest, maybe the back end of it or into 2026 maybe. But we're getting Fury Joshua. Even he knows it. I think deep down he knows nobody's fooled. Good luck trying to fool anyone who thinks you were serious and telling the world you retired today, Tyson Fury, because none of us are fooled. Good luck. You know you couldn't cut against Alexander Usyk twice. Actually, I said all along, I'd rather see you finish your business with Francis Ngannou after what took place a year and a half ago at the Saudi Arabia Riyadh season. We know what the story of that is before you get Anthony Joshua, but it looks like you don't want to do that either. I think we know why. And speaking of people that's running and avoiding, pound for pound, the number one coward in the sport of boxing right now is none other than Sam Goodman. 3 times you ducked Naoya Inoue because you're faking a cut. Give me a break. You go into Naoya Inoue's hometown after he beats Louis Neary and said to his face, you're going to come to Japan and take his belts. Not once, not twice, 3 times. 3 times you duck. You say you were cut by it's like the equivalent of a cat scratch. I've seen the cut. The cut's basically softer than a cat scratch. It's nothing. Okay, it's like the equivalent of cut. Paper cuts is the equivalent of one of those cat scratching your arms, the equivalent of an animal scratching your face. That's the kind of cut it was. Nothing serious. It's because Sam Goodman is a coward. We all know this. Plain and simple. I think it's time now for Naoya Inoue to consider other options. I was told he was to have had an appointment. I can't think of his name off the minute. He'll probably go through with it in January, handle business. The fight everybody wants to see, and we all know this, and I expect it to happen probably toward the end of 2025 in Japan at some point, is Naoya Inoue versus Junto Natakani, two of the top 6 fighters in the world pound for pound. And that's the fight everybody wants to see. Now, of course, Natakani has a fight. Inoue's going to go through this. They'll probably have some rumored to be having a double header here in the States. I don't know if Bob Arum's still going to go through with it. And proceeds to a fight later this year or early 26 for an all Japan showdown between Inoue and Natakani. That's a fight everybody wants to see. As far as this coward Sam Goodman goes, see ya. Keep your ass down under. Keep yourself down under. Don't even bother trying to come out of Australia ever again, because you're going to act like that and then resort to cowarding out 3 times. As they say in baseball, that's your 3 strikes. You're out. Sit it. Stay in Australia. Don't even bother coming out. We're done with you. I hate when people duck. Reminds me of what Riddick Bowe did to Lennox Lewis 30 years ago. And of course, with it being 2025, it was also the 2024 Ring Magazine Awards for the high established Ring Magazine, recently purchased by the individual Turk Al Sheikh, trying to bring some credibility to it. Have at it. Opinions all over the place. I mean, I just got to touch on the fighter of the other awards is subject to opinion, but the fighter of the year was a no-brainer. It was Alexander Usyk. I mean, he beat Fury twice, become the undisputed heavyweight champ, won the rematch going away. So, I mean, he was the rightful winner of the award. I expect him for all of these so-called yearly awards to him to clean that out, because that was his year in 2024. I mean, a couple of the guys might have come close, but didn't do anything of significance. But it was Alexander Usyk, bar none. Period. End of story. The real fighter of the year in 2024. Knockout of the year was the fake heavyweight championship between Dubois and AJ. Okay. The upset was when Jaime Munguia lost his last fight, deserving of that award. Prospect of the year, Moises Aitama. Won't go that far with him, but I like the potential. I probably would have given it to Abdullah Mason, but that's the end game right there. The rest of the awards were irrelevant. Kind of interesting. They want to do something like this televised from Saudi Arabia, of all places. I think it was neat, though. They got some of these legends together. Like, I saw Roberto Duran there. I thought a couple of others. I can't think of it. I know Canelo Alvarez was there. Duran showing love to Canelo as he always does. Of course, some of the Today fighters. I saw Jaya Pataya there. It was sort of a nice event, but it's weird they held it where they held it. Is blows my mind away. But that's done with. That's gone on to 2025. 2024 now is done. And I will close it out. Of course, I have a great birthday celebration today. Actually, it was over the weekend. It's the 76th birthday of the pop culture icon George Foreman. He's 76 and he's still a pop culture icon. Think about that. Think about what this guy did. His first career to the 10 years out, to the second career to regain the heavyweight title, to get all of the endorsement deals, to become a larger-than-life television figure into his 50s, 60s, and still doing interviews in his 70s. He's one of a kind. I mean, we know his first career, how it was, very standoffish, take care of business, bulldoze you like a tank running through a tank running through a house. Of course, loses to Ali. Loses to Jimmy Young with a 10-year retirement. Comes back. People make fun of him in his comeback. He has a last laugh in '94 to win the heavyweight championship of the world. Reascends himself to a top 7 all-time great heavyweight. Gets all the commercials. Of course, the grill where he pocketed nearly $200 million. Becomes a philanthropist. Has the George Foreman Youth Center. The book. And, of course, the movie that came out a couple years ago about his comeback. And he was doing interviews with Brandon Marshall and Deshaun Jackson not too long ago before the movie came out. And every time George Foreman steps out these days, I mean, it gives you goosebumps. I mean, he was the prototypical celebrity makeover, if you want to call it that, from his first career to his 10-year retirement to his second career, where he acknowledged he had to do a total makeover to get people to at least listen to him and understand who he is, because in his first incarnation of George Foreman, he was just a standoffish guy, just wanted to take care of business in the ring, get in there, beat the brakes off of you, and go home. Just like what he did to Joe Frazier, January 22nd, 1973. And of course, he lost the title to Muhammad Ali, where he continues to say about the rope-a-dope. It was the rope-a-dope, and he was the dope. Turned out that basically Ali took him to the deep waters and sank him, and basically sink or swim opportunity. George Foreman sank by his own admission. Then, of course, the retirement. He comes back, and of course, after he comes back, people make fun of his career. Beat Michael Moore, regained the heavyweight championship almost in a way when he won the title in '94 at age 45. It's like his stature rose, to because people thought whether he was top 10 heavyweight. I think he put himself maybe the top 6 or 7 of all time in that division. And of course, it spun to all the endorsements with Pepsi, Meineke, Doritos, and of course, we know about the grill. Now he's a philanthropist. He has the George Foreman Youth Center in Houston, Texas, and of course, there was that movie about his comeback, and he's still doing interviews. He's still, people still love Big George. I mean, of course, in the middle of that, he had that great commentary career for 12 years with HBO Sports next to Jim Lampley and Larry Merchant. But George was one of a kind. He still is at age 76. What can you say? I mean, not too long ago, he was still punching holes in a heavy bag at age 75. Can you imagine being punched, have a hole through your head, punched by a 270+ pound man at age 75? I'll admit, I don't even want to step in the ring with that guy. But that was what George Foreman was. One of a kind. We all love Big George. Top 6 all-time great heavyweight. Probably ascended to a like a pop culture icon status, especially for the people the baby boomer and even the Gen X era and the 40-somethings like myself, to let people know, even in your 40s and 50s, you can still make something of yourself when given the opportunity. George Foreman did that when he came back in his second career, ascended to become the heavyweight champion in '94, and now the rest is history with him. I mean, what can you say? We love Big George. Happy birthday, Big George Foreman. We all love you. And of course, I want to close on speaking of anniversary, close on a cooler note on the entertainment world. It was 59 years ago today the original Batman series came out. Batman. With the cartoons, the physicals of F, oof, eesh, wham, bam. It started, of course, Adam West was Batman, and I think his name, Burt Ward was Robin. Of course, we know Batman cultivated to another kind of generational icon, where all kinds of comic books, movies, different types of TV series, spun off of the characters, however you want to diagnose it. From that series on to today. Of course, it was big in the Marvel comics, but it was 59 years ago today. I think they had like a 3 or 4 season series where that was introduced, and we were all introduced to some kind of almost like a pop cultural fictional iconism in the way that Batman was introduced. Batman and Robin. Of course, it was Adam West who played Batman. It was Burt Ward who played Robin. 4 series, still fun. Of course, the fists or the kicks or whatever goes through, you start to see those little signs where it says bam, wham, oof, oof, all those crazy words. Still today is we talk about some of the great Batman movies, the Batman cartoons, the Batman, drawings. It captivates almost the soul in a way, fictionally. It's almost indescribable. 59 years ago today, that started it. Right, what more can you say? I remember in the 80s watching reruns of this on the the old TV with the banana ears, where you have 88 layers of aluminum foil on the antennas, having to switch the channel, trying to adjust the antenna to get the static away so you can watch the TV. And you see late night reruns of the 60s series Batman. It was fun stuff. I mean, I said it's still a pop culture icon in a fictional character today, because we're talking about the greatest movies, documentaries about it. Actually, the movie I saw, I remember it was, I say, early 90s. It was Michael Keaton as a Batman and Jack Nicholson was a Joker. Because I remember Nicholson as a Joker, and he played that role to perfection. So it was Batman, and I still love Batman to this day. Actually, an older gentleman I've known for the longest time still has the original Batman shirt that came out in the 60s with a Batman logo on it, and he still wears it. I mean, yes, they were making Batman shirts in the 60s. Think about that. And he still had it. I mean, that's still a pop culture icon. And still that song in your head. No, Batman. And it was 59 years ago today. We were introduced. It was on ABC TV. when you were all thing way you could watch TV was buying about $30 worth of aluminum foil, wrapping up those antennas, playing with it sideways, trying to get the static off so you could watch Batman. That was me back in those days. Actually, they had reruns in the 80s. I think one of the internet channels has all the episodes. I'm going to try and check it out. Hopefully, I don't have to pay for it because I think it's just ignorant to pay for it. Back when TV was worth watching, and today it certainly isn't. Oh, I miss those days. And I guess on that note, I will go ahead and wrap up this Monday night edition of Sirhan on X. Actually, one of the most fun ones I had in quite some time. Loaded this thing. I got to talk about some entertainment and Batman. I'm actually just start talking more some entertainment stuff soon. Maybe. I don't know. But until that happens, I hope everyone out there has themselves a wonderful 13th of January 2025. And as always, I like to tell everyone, and I tell this to everyone in all walks of life, always, always, always make self-care your number one priority. Take care of yourself first before you take care of anybody else. Because if you don't take care of yourself first and you aren't able to take care of yourself first, nothing else matters. That's what I can say at the end. Until then, I'll be back at it tomorrow night. Good night. Take care of yourselves. And those in the Cincinnati area, stay warm. And to everybody out there, God bless.